Hello again and welcome to another 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to Art Tarango for sending in some awesome pictures of his Imperial Guard collection. I normally don't use unpainted or partially painted miniatures in my videos, but I had to make an exception because this is a damn fine collection, a damn impressive assembly of the Emperor's might. So thanks for sending these pictures out. Make sure you get them painted up. Now if you've got some pictures you want me to use in my videos, then please post them on my Facebook page or email them directly to me at mordianglorytv. And don't worry if you can't remember that, perhaps you're an ogre who hasn't had his bone head surgery yet. There will be links and descriptions and all that kind of thing down in the video description below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. Now today guys, I want to take a special look and do a full review of the Malcador Defender. Now there are several other variants of Malcador tank, but we're not going to be looking at those today. We're going to be doing those in another video. I want to do a special episode about the Malcador Defender because it is a vehicle that featured prominently in a rather interesting Imperial Guard list that came second in a grand tournament. Now I've done videos on this list and this tournament, and I'll have a link to that at the end of this video, but a big part of that list was a Vostroyan Malcador Defender, and I have always said since the Imperium Compendium, and even before then, the Malcador was a really interesting tank, and the Malcador Defender I've always seen as the most competitive option. Even in 8th, I saw it as a good option because it had the ability, when you combined it with the Mordian trait and defensive gunners and its own inbuilt things back in 8th, you could have it where it hit on 3s in Overwatch. And bear in mind, in 8th, everything could Overwatch for free. It was actually, it very much lived up to its name, the Malcador Defender. So I've always liked the Malcador. I've always thought it's the most competitive one, and now we're seeing it featured in lists, and I think it's about time because it is a very good unit. So some of you might be saying, what is the Malcador Defender? Well, it is a tank that you have to buy from Forge World. So bear in mind, there is a price tag that comes with buying it. So, but it is a very, very good vehicle, and it is essentially, from the fluff, from the lore, it's kind of a, it's like an older vehicle. It was used extensively by the Renegades on Vrax because that was an armory world that had loads and loads of sort of second and third line equipment. Perfectly good in an invasion, you know, hand out the autoguns to everyone. Don't worry about it being a lasgun and autogun. But the Malcador Defender was an older version of an older tank. Some considered it obsolete, but it ended up being used by both the Renegades and by the Krieg forces, I believe, because a lot of the Krieg forces have their own unique stuff, and the Krieg got their own, often use their older pattern stuff because they are basically World War I in space. So, from what I understand, it is kind of an older tank, not as new in inverted commas as the Lehman Russ, but it's still a damn good vehicle, and it often gets pulled onto the front line out of reserves when the Imperium just needs a big block of armour and the Lehman Russes are becoming hard to come by. So that's kind of the fluff behind it and the way you get it from Forge World. Let's get a look into now the vehicle itself and its stats and how competitive it is. So a Malcador Defender, straight away, it's 260 points, which is pretty pricey. Okay, for your 260 points, you get movement 10 inches, weapon skill 6+, ballistic skill 4+, strength 7, toughness 8, 18 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 7, and a 3+ save. So a pretty standard Lehman Russ-like profile, apart from you're getting 6 more wounds, you're getting 50% more wounds, which is nice. So it's kind of very much halfway between a heavy vehicle and a super heavy vehicle. The Makari, if you think of the Lehman Russ as a heavy tank, by 40k standards when you compare to traditional things like Predators and stuff like that, it's probably a medium tank by today's standards, but traditionally the Lehman Russ is considered a heavy tank. And the Macaris I would see as a light super heavy, and the Baneblade I would see as a proper super heavy, and then you start getting into crazy things. I would see the Malcador as part way between a heavy tank and a light super tank, super heavy. If you see that, it's probably easier to say that the Lehman Russ is by modern standards, by modern 40k standards, the Lehman Russ is a medium tank, the Malcador is a heavy tank, and the Macarius is a light super heavy tank, and Baneblades are super heavies. So it is a very much, if the Leman Russ is now basically being downgraded to the medium tank, the Malcador is very much a heavy tank, and it's because of those 18 wounds. Now it's 18 wounds and a toughness 8 profile, which is very nice, but when it explodes on a 6+, and it does 6 inches, and it does D6 mortal wounds, so it does do a big chunk of wounds when it goes. It does have smoke launchers, which is great. Now, it doesn't actually have any more special rules. It has had a lot of its special rules taken away from it between editions. So there's none of this. It Overwatch and hits on a +1 anymore, which is a shame. But what weapons it comes with is it comes with the Demolisher Cannon, which are doing very well at the moment. And it comes with heavy bolters. Specifically, it comes with 7 heavy bolters. Sorry, because you get the sponsored ones as well. So it comes with 7 heavy bolters. I knew it was 7. Now, the Demolisher Cannon is good, but bear in mind that this vehicle does not have the grinding advance rule that the Leman Russ has. So you will only be getting D6 shots from your Malcador Defender's Demolisher Cannon. On the other hand, because it doesn't have the grinding advance special rule, despite the fact that this is basically a World War I tank in space, it will actually often be going faster than your Leman Russ, which is basically a T-34 in space. Because this vehicle has no incentive to go half distance. You know, you can go 10 inches, you can go 1 inch to get the same number of shots. Unlike the Leman Russ, which you'll typically find, even though it has a 10-inch movement on its profile, will never ever do a 10-inch movement. Because unless it's falling back, it'll never do an aggressive 10-inch movement, because you always want it to be getting double shots, because you need it to be doing that fire output. So it has a Marsh Cannon, but it only gets D6 shots. But with the blast rule, that's not too bad. The main thing that's bringing this vehicle up. Okay, so far it doesn't sound so impressive. Why is this being included in tournament winning lists? The main thing that brings this vehicle up is the fact that it has 7 heavy bolters. Okay, that's pretty much it. So the reason why 7 heavy bolters is so good is because all those heavy bolters are damage 2. And that is really anti-meta. Even with Death Guard being all over the place and having an eye-watering win rate, damage 2 weaponry is still very, very good against a lot of the Marine units we're seeing out there. And it is especially good against Dark Elder. So even though heavy bolters and damage 2 weapons were starting to see a bit of a decrease thanks to Death Guard, they are definitely on the rise again thanks to Dark Elder, because the Dark Elder lost their Feel No Pain. They have no way of reducing those wounds. They are typically toughness 4 or toughness 5, which means heavy bolters are very good against them because they're always wounding them pretty much on 4s or 3s. And they've got the rate of fire, and they've got the damage to slam those Hellions off those skyboards, to punch those Reavers off their bikes, and they've got the volume. You've got the volume of fire. You've got 21 heavy bolter shots. 21 heavy bolter shots. That is more than a Baneblade. Okay, this vehicle has more heavy bolters than a Baneblade, and people will tell you that a Baneblade without its multitude of sponsons and stuff on the side of it doesn't feel that powerful. So this has all the supplementary firepower of a Baneblade. Okay, for less than half the price. For about less than half the price of the Baneblade with 2 sponsors. So it has the Daka. It has the anti-metaness. It has toughness, and it has additional wounds to make up for the fact that it doesn't have an invulnerable save. So all of these things are really good, but it only hits on 4s. Pardon me. So it hits on 4s, so there is a bit of a problem there, but the way you get around that is you either you take it in a Verstroyan detachment, and Verstroyans are very respectable regiment choice. They are neither the top pick nor the bottom pick. They are bang in the middle pick. They're a good choice. But what makes Verstroyans almost an S tier, super tier pick for Guard is they have access to one of the most universally awesome stratagems, useful stratagems in 40k, which is 1 CP, Firstborn Pride, select a Verstroyan unit, give it +1 to hit. It's so good. I have literally been banging on about Firstborn Pride for years. Since we got our Codex in 8th edition, I have always said the Verstroyans are pretty middling unless you take into account Firstborn Pride. then they become incredible. Because that simple 1 CP stratagem allows you to really boost up a key anchor unit. Bane Blades are pointless unless you're taking them destroying with Firstborn Pride. Regularly in Russes are pointless unless you can turn one into a pseudo tank commander thanks to Firstborn Pride. There's so many. It's such a good universally just useful stratagem. It's really powerful. So you put your Firstborn Pride on your Malcador Defender and you're having a great time. The other way you can do it is you can go Cadian. So Cadian is very much on the ascendancy when it comes to fighting in tournaments, because Kathachans kind of get outdone by the custom regiment traits now, the gunnery experts and the other one, basically the one that gives you the extra range and the one that gives you the reroll random number of shots. Kathachans get outdone by that now. But Cadians are still clinging on because they can get reroll random number of shots via orders, and they have reroll ones built in if they stay still. Now, you're not bothered about your infantry staying still. You don't care about rerolling ones on your lasguns, but you do care about rerolling ones for free, basically, on all your tank commanders and whatnot, and your manticores and all those kind of things. And also on your Malcador Defender, because you could chip off a wound and then use overlapping fields of fire, and then your Malcador Defender gets +1 to hit, and all the other units get +1 to hit as well. And so, because Cadians, again, have access to a sweet +1 to hit, well, now it is a little bit harder to pull off, but it's still very good. Again, and the Malcador Defender, and now Chaos is on the rise. You've got Mordian, you've got Demons, you've got Magnus. God, well, Magnus not just F off, like, pardon my language, but will you not just go away? Every time I think he's finally died a death, someone finds a way of making him work, and he comes back, and I hate his stupid model. I might have been smashed by Magnus a few times in a tournament. And tournament practice. So Cadian is good because they're the anti-chaos faction. Relic of Lost Cadia is basically the auto-win relic versus most chaos lists, even against the most competitive ones. And you can take a Malcador Defender and a chaos thing, and you can give it +1 to hit, so it makes it really, really good. So Malcador Defender is fantastic because it is a big, chunky model with really good anti-meta firepower. And the best part about all of it is that it is a regular old heavy support choice. It is not a super heavy choice. Now that is what makes it good. Are you the kind of guy that likes to turn up with a big centerpiece tank, but even though you've got Macaris, it is blowing your CP out of your hand. You've got no command points into the game. You'd want your Bane Blade, but again, command points are a problem because it costs you basically 6 CP to turn up with this thing, 3 of the detachment, 3 to put it off the board so it doesn't die turn 1 from Eradicators. Then you want to look at the Malcador Defender because it is half the price of a Bane Blade. It is a third cheaper than a Macaris. It comes with decent firepower. You can give it the +1 to hit via Firstborn Pride or via overlapping fields of fire, and you don't care if it dies because it does not cripple your entire army because it is only 260 points. And if the enemy leaves it alone, then it is going to fire 21 heavy bolter shots into them every single turn, and it is going out plus a cheeky demolish cannon shot every single turn, and it is going to have a great time. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the Malcador Defender. I think it's a fantastic unit. I will caveat it by saying, outside of a couple of niche uses, like Cadian, like Destroying, I don't know how useful it is. But right now, it is very much a good competitive choice for those guard players that want to try and still make armor work. Now, I have done multiple videos on this over years, but recently I've done multiple videos on this saying I feel like we're heading back towards the dark days of 7th and potentially overwhelming infantry numbers are the way to go because the Malcador will die just as easily as a squad of infantry. But so I will caveat by saying I have heaped much praise upon this vehicle. We don't know, I can't say whether it's a good long-term choice, but it's definitely a fun choice, and if you already own the Malcador, then brush it off and have a great time with it. Definitely. And if you are looking for an excuse to buy a Malcador and you love the model and you just want it to be good in a few games, go ahead, pull that trigger, it's fantastic. I'm really looking at pulling the trigger on more Forge World stuff. Once this new YouTube studio is done, it's going to be Forge World City, it's going to be Event City, it's going to be great. Hopefully I'll be able to get some of those models before Forge World bins them. I won't care, I still want to get them for just collector's sake. But the Malcador is a fantastic looking model, it is a useful model, and it's good, but just be aware that, as anything with Forge World, its lifetime may be limited. Forge World are constantly trimming models out of their range. I think I saw the Machias Vulcan might actually no longer be available anymore, which would be really sad. So the problem is that with anything with Forge World, it appears games are trying to bin them off. So the one thing I'd say is get it and enjoy it while you can. If you want to get one, get it and enjoy it while you can. And at least if it does get binned off at some point, you know that at one point your beautiful Malcador Defender was useful and it got its time in the sun. And sometimes that's all we can ask for, is for us to get our time in the sun. Apologies for my phone going off in the background there. I have put it on silent just for the end of the video. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you like what you've heard today, please consider heading on over to the Patreon page. There is a Patreon link down in the description below. I don't make a big deal out of the Patreon, but I should do, because my Patreon supporters are absolutely awesome, and without them we would not be closing in on the magical 10,000 subs. It's thanks to my Patreon supporters that I'm able to try and improve the content of this channel, new equipment, new models, new armies, and attending new tournaments, and all that kind of stuff. So massive thank you to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. I'm totally transparent about my Patreon money. It all gets reinvested back into the channel. I do not monetize any of my videos at this point, because I like to try and remain impartial, and like to try and have as few adverts as possible. So there's no minimum, maximum Patreon. There's no, if you pay me $20, you get to have a private chat with me in a Discord or anything wanky like that. It's entirely publicly donated. If you want to give me $1, you want to give me $20, I don't mind. Any support I'm really grateful for, and like I said, it gets reinvested directly back into the channel to try and improve the videos that I do. So, shameless plug over. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.